I'm currently a senior in high school and I live in a pretty nice town in North Carolina. It all started a year ago when I was 16. At the time, I was working at Starbucks as a barista. It was Thursday and surprisingly the cafe was almost empty. A few minutes before the end of my shift, one of my colleagues informed me that a cute guy is here to see you. I was confused because I didn't have a boyfriend at the time and I'm pretty average looking, so I couldn't imagine that a guy could be interested in me. As I turned around, I recognized the boy instantly. Henry, which was my dad's best friend's son. He's 3 years older than me, and for a reason that I wasn't aware of, he enjoyed making me feel miserable. Things like calling me fat and ugly, and a lot of other sweet things that you really don't want to hear as an already insecure teenager. So for obvious reasons, seeing him at my workplace didn't fill me with joy. Now on a completely objective point of view, he was a very good-looking guy. Blonde hair and blue eyes, but he knew that he was attractive, which made me want to punch his smirk off of his face. Henry said he was actually here to apologize for being a complete douchebag, and confessed that he actually really liked me but didn't know how to act around me because I radiate such a powerful energy that it was really debilitating. His words, not mine. Being the dumb girl that I was, I accepted his apologies, and from that moment on, we kept in touch every day. He would send me good morning and good night texts and give me cute nicknames in whatever couples do. However, he never asked me to be his girlfriend, but he would introduce himself to others as my one and true love. I should have seen the red flags from the start. He would show up at my place without asking me at least once a week. I live alone with my dad, who actually really likes the guy, so my old man didn't care about his constant presence at home. After a few months into our relationship, I decided to call it off though, because he was being really possessive. He was jealous of my girlfriends, and I discovered that he was in contact with his previous ex-girlfriend, that he kept on telling me to not worry about it. His reaction wasn't what I expected. He shrugged and was okay, whatever you want, babe. Don't get me wrong, I didn't want him to hurt because of me, but he seemed so nonchalant about this that it was almost worrying. I thought the story would end here, but I was wrong, because even after the breakup, he kept on coming over and taking naps on my bed while I wasn't home. When I confronted him about it, he would respond with, "I came to see your dad," or "We're still friends. I don't see what's bothering you." Well, what's bothering me is that if you weren't wearing an expensive ass cologne with a strong smell, I wouldn't know that you came in my room while I was out in the first place. So I tried to tell my dad that Henry and I weren't together anymore, that he had no right to come over and make himself at home in my own room. But my dad just laughed and said that I was being a drama queen, so I'm sure you can understand why I'm kinda stuck at this point. What I didn't know was that Henry was basically following me everywhere. I noticed it a few weeks ago, but I'm pretty sure that it had been going on for quite some time now. He would follow my car as I was going to school, or park his truck in the Starbucks parking lot whenever I was working, and he would peek through my bedroom window and even leave handprints that I only saw after some time. I didn't notice until a few weeks ago. My car had a problem with one of the tires, so I had to take the bus for a little while. One morning as I walked out of my house, I saw his truck and immediately made out his face as he was sitting in the driver's seat. And that's when I connected the dots. My gut feeling going into a frenzy whenever I was out. 3 of my tires being slashed, and the handprints on my bedroom window. When the realization hit me, a shiver ran down my spine. I felt paralyzed and tears fell down my face. I felt nauseous and decided that I needed to talk about it to somebody. I made up my mind and told my friend Tyler, who's 5 years older than me and is studying law. I told him the whole story, and unfortunately he told me I couldn't do anything because I didn't have any concrete proof, and it would just be my word against his. He's a damn good manipulator. Now I'm stuck because I don't know what to do. I tried to take pictures of his car, but due to the lack of light in my neighborhood, I never managed to snap one in which we could recognize him. Whenever he was parked in front of my house and we made eye contact, he usually started the truck and drove off. I haven't seen him in 3 days, but my gut feeling is still making me go crazy. So a bit of backstory. I'm an 18-year-old girl from the UK. I was 16 at the time of this story though. I got set up on a blind date kind of, but we had seen photos of each other by a mutual friend. And this guy we'll call Cameron, and he was 19. Cameron seemed like your average guy. Maybe a little bit into video games and anime and stuff, but overall nothing my friend told me about him seemed off in any way. Our mutual friend gave us each other's numbers, and we texted for a night and then decided to meet at a nearby Starbucks the next day, since we were both free. I never like to meet new people this soon, but I figured since Cameron knew my friend, it couldn't possibly go wrong. How mistaken I was, though. I arrived slightly early and ordered my coffee since I never like guys to feel like they have to buy for me, and I found a seat facing away from the door and I pulled out my book. I'm maybe there for 15 minutes chilling out and I get a text saying that he's here, so I'm like, great. But suddenly I feel a presence over my shoulder and I turn my head slightly in acknowledgement. He must be here. Before I even get the chance to squeak out a hello, his lips latch onto my neck and he starts sucking on my neck. Now, I don't like people touching my neck, even at the best of times. I'm very ticklish and I get super uncomfortable by people even going anywhere near my neck. The first few times I had a massage or hair treatments, I had been holding in my discomfort. And he lashed onto my neck like a leech, and this man smells horrendous. Kind of like dust personified. I freak out and I elbow his chest to get him the hell off of me. He then lets go and looks at me with this weird expression on his face and laughs in deadpan. I asked him what the hell that was, and he just said, I thought it was cute. Cute in what world? I try to have a conversation, like let's try to give him another chance, but he's just creepily staring at my chest and he says, wow, I didn't know Asians could have boobs like those. I better not let you go. And that's a direct quote. I cannot make this shit up. I was feeling extremely uncomfortable, but I didn't want to just run away. It was giving me really weird vibes. So I go to the ladies' bathroom and I wait for someone else to come in. I asked her to help me get out undetected because I didn't want this man following me home or some shit. She of course agrees and she lends me her hat and scarf and we come out of the bathroom together and she manages to help sneak me out the back door of the Starbucks without him noticing me. He asked my friend where I went, but I told my friend to never mention me again. I was too terrified of him. I know I probably didn't behave well. Maybe I should have just told him I was leaving. But I was honestly just scared. I want to start off by saying that everyone in this story is safe, but it was one of the closest calls I've ever had in my life, and I feel like I have to tell this story in order to raise awareness. I live in a major city in practically the pit of hell state. Born and raised here, I'm very familiar with my surroundings. I'm also aware of the fact that my city is one of the worst hubs for human trafficking, and living here can be very dangerous. Despite all of this, I've taken pride in knowing that I do everything I can to remain as safe as possible. I've had close calls before, with one being a shitty landlord who gave a stranger copies of my keys, and a man tried to enter as soon as I was alone, and other horrifying tales. I'm pretty prepared though. At this time, I had 2 things of pepper spray, one in my favorite jacket pocket and one velcro to my desk at work. I also had 2 trusty pocket knives, which I always kept one on me and one in my car door pocket. Oh, and my taser never leaves my bag. I avoid shady situations at all costs, and despite being a small lady, I know my stuff. But on to the story. It is summer and hot as hell out, so I've got a date with my best friend and I swing by her place to pick her up. She tells me she has a job interview to go to first, and I agree to go with her. No big deal. She's a sweet tiny thing from a small town in the Midwest, and very new to the city life and the wild things that can happen here. As we drive into a different city, I ask her about the job. It's a modeling gig, she says. Oh, that's cool. For who? I asked. I found an ad on Craigslist. It's just sports clothes. The Craigslist thing sets a small distant alarm off in my head, but I push it to the side. Where the heck are we going anyway? When we pull up to a Starbucks a bit outside the city, the alarm in my head becomes a little less faint. Relax, I tell myself. I've gone to legit job interviews at coffee shops before, and there's always been a good reason. We arrive first, late still, but end up waiting about 15 minutes. Kinda weird. But Kat's relieved that we're not the rude ones when she gets a text from the guy saying that he's here. I look around the Starbucks and outside at the parking lot trying to figure out who the mystery man could be, when I notice a tall, well-dressed man step out of a black SUV. He smiles at us as he approaches, and I figured that he was our guy. I could have sworn that the SUV had been parked there for a while. I ask Kat if she wants me to step in line and grab her a drink, but she practically begs me to stay with her. Okay, I can do that. I didn't think it looked very professional, but I don't protest. The man named Jack leads us to an isolated table outside and doesn't say much about my presence. other than that it was okay for me to be there. I get on my phone and shoot a text to my fiance explaining where I was and what I was doing. He shoots a text back saying be careful, and I sit pretty to watch the show. Jack had this strange accent that I couldn't place my finger on. Looking back, I'm not even sure it was real. He starts asking Kat the usual questions, and I notice she's absolutely bombing the interview. She doesn't have much experience and didn't bother to bring a portfolio, but despite this, he doesn't seem to care. The alarm in my head is much louder than a whisper, but it completely blares when he asks if she'd be comfortable doing lingerie shoots as well. Dear sweet Kat says she doesn't have an issue with it, but would prefer to do mostly sports clothing, like they had discussed earlier. She asks to see some of his work, and he pulls up a lingerie Instagram. All lingerie, no clothing at all. He holds it in front of her face and pulls it away immediately. And when she asks if there would be more that she's doing, Jack goes, "That was it," and hurries the conversation along. He says that we need to go right now to his studio at a place he briefly mentioned the name of, to sign papers and get everything squared away. And that it has to be done today. That he wasn't working tomorrow and his coworkers won't do it right. I absolutely hated everything about this, and I'm trying to glare some sense into her, but nothing is getting through. Kat agrees, and he turns his attention to me. "So do you want to be a part of this too?" I immediately know that nothing about this is professional. I look down at my beat up docs in green cargo pants, a shirt that has flames and a slightly edgy logo on it, and I can't help but sigh. That's not really my thing. I'm just the ride. He studies me for a second and then says we can all ride with him, directing his attention to Kat. "No, I don't want to leave my car. We'll follow you." He looks offended that I butt in, and he asks where we parked. "Right in front of the store." I pull Kat to the Jeep and make sure we walk behind him. As soon as we get to the car, I lock the doors and I try to keep from freaking out. "We are not going," I said. "This doesn't feel right. What about the lingerie?" But everything I say she has an excuse for. We pull out of the parking lot and I follow Jack's SUV, but the whole time I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this. Kat doesn't like lingerie, but this could be a door for her and she desperately needs the money. What if it is legit? "He was alone anyway. You have your knife and spray, right?" she asked. Of course I do, but I'm 5'2", and this man is 6'3", and Jack could very much have friends where we're going. And I don't want to possibly kill anyone or be killed. At this point, I realize that Kat is batshit. We drive along as I talk to her, and we start driving out into the desert, the middle of absolute nowhere. There's a divider in the road that prevents U-turns, and I get an eerie feeling that Jack knew to take us this way. I'm absolutely desperate at this point. I pull out my phone and snap a picture of his SUV license plate. I uploaded it to Snapchat where friends can see it. Kat starts getting uncomfortable once she realizes how far we've driven. The name of the place he mentioned springs back into my head, and I know it's familiar from somewhere. A commercial jingle that's distant but catchy. It's a restaurant or a hotel or something. He wouldn't have a studio there. Please just look it up. So she does. And it's a casino. Unless this man has rented out a space, he wouldn't have a studio there. It's not consistent with the information he gave us at all. So with us both freaking out at this point, I told her that this isn't uncommon and he was trying to confuse us the entire time. Throughout the entire interview, she had a confused and hesitant look on her face, like this wasn't what she was promised or expecting at all. Kat finally agrees that we need to get out of there, and I start to breathe easy again. It was a rough, quick stop and turnaround. Once turned around, we absolutely gun it. She ends up getting a call from Jack, and at first glance, she ignores it. But I convince her to call back, and she gets nothing at all. Like the number had blocked her, it didn't go through. I tell her to screenshot the Craigslist ad, but she can't find it anywhere. It's like every trace of Jack disappeared. We went back to her apartment, and I told her that she needs to report it. She promised me that she will, but later decides not to because she doesn't want her husband to know. He didn't even know she had this interview to begin with, and she didn't want him to know what happened. If I hadn't driven her, she would have gone alone, without telling a soul, and who knows what could have happened. I tried not to scold her too badly, but I just reminded her that our city was different and much more dangerous than where she's from. So sweet Kat, I hope you're a little bit more awake to the world, and I'm sorry for that. It's been a few months since we split ways, and I'm still worried to death over all the oblivious, crazy things that you get into. I'm almost 4 months pregnant now, and finally ready to get out of this damn dangerous city. But anyway, please people, be safe out there. It's such a crazy world. And be damn careful with Craigslist especially. I was working at a Panera Bread restaurant, and we had a bread bash, which is sort of a meeting for all the employees to update the menu. I had a shift that ended at 8, but I finished everything up early and I waited out in the lobby with my friend. It was a while until the meeting actually began, so my friend and I decided to go grab coffee together at the nearest Starbucks. So we get in and out of Starbucks pretty quickly, and we begin walking to my car, when I notice a man staring at us the next parking lot over. Thinking of it, we take our time to get in the car, when I notice he starts running towards us. I tell my friend to quickly get in the car, since we are both women and we can't just trust random men. I closed my door as he caught up to us, locking it swiftly. I suppose he didn't notice how fast we tried to get inside, or the car locking, so he knocked on my window, even though I was already looking up at him. He then asks me to roll down the window, but I motion to my ear and say loudly enough that I can hear what he has to say. He then asks for a ride and points past the Starbucks to his right. Luckily, I was telling the truth and I informed him that we had a meeting at our work the opposite way. He tells me it'll just be real quick, but I say that we're running late and he finally backs off, but not without staring me down first. On the way back, my friend asked me why I didn't just let him in since our meeting didn't start for another 20 minutes. But I just simply told her that I don't ever and I'm not allowed to and will never give a ride to a stranger, and it shuts her up. Well, after the meeting was finished, I remembered it takes 20 minutes to get home. My car wouldn't make it back without getting gas. I parked at pump number 7 and I grabbed cash to go inside. Once I'm inside, I grab a bag of chips before getting ready to pay for gas, when I look up and make eye contact with someone familiar. It was that stranger who asked for a ride. I know it's the same person because he was a skinny, white male that appeared to be anywhere from his late 20s to early 30s, with messy brown hair and a patchy beard. He also had on a baggy brown hoodie along with baggy jeans. I feel my heart beat faster, and after seeing him exit the store, I pay for the gas and my things, and I stand around a couple of people as I peer outside. The stranger was standing around my car for a few solid minutes before walking away. Once I saw no sight of him, I walked out behind a very large man and made my way towards the car. I'm $6 into pumping my gas so far when I look over towards the building and see the stranger push off from the wall and begin to stride over to me, flicking a cigarette during the way. I swear gas has never pumped so slowly before in my life. I realized there was no way to speed up my gas, so I sneakily put my keys between my knuckles as he stops before me, looks at me, to which I give an uncomfortable half smile. He then asks me if he knows me from somewhere, and I pretend to examine him as if he was familiar, but shake my head no. He then asks for my name, to which I say the first name that came to my head, Valerie. He then said something that made my skin crawl. Well, Valerie, I need to head over there, and you're the prettiest one here, so I was wondering if maybe you can give me a ride. As he says this, he was pointing to his right again, which made me wonder why he decided to go even farther from his desired destination, and why he's not just simply walked there during the whole 2 hours and a half since I last saw him. I told him my parents needed me home since it was a school night and it's already late, but he reached a hand out for mine, which was now slowly pulling out the pump, and I flinched away noticeably. It'll be real quick. I just need a ride to my friends. At this point, I believed he hadn't recognized me from the encounter at Starbucks, but I then told him again that my parents are expecting me home any minute now, and he huffs and puffs before finally walking off. I finished with everything, dealing with my gas tank, and got inside my car, where I locked my doors and drove home on a different route, just in case I was being followed. I have never given a ride to a stranger, and I never will.